Hello, and welcome to Impact AI. I'm your host, John Hodges. On today's episode, we turn our lens to supply chain and logistics, one of the most crucial and dynamic spaces in business. We'll talk about how leaders are navigating disruption, scaling operations, and preparing for what comes next. I'm pleased to welcome Kief Hampton, who brings experience in international mobility, route fulfillment, and overseeing logistics across states and international domains. He's managed delivery route networks, fulfillment operations, and mobility strategies, which gives him a grounded view of what's working right now and where things are heading. Keith, thanks for being here.
Nice to meet you. Thank you for having me.
So, to start, will you introduce yourself, walk us through how you got into supply chain and logistics, and what your journeys look like?
Sure. I've been in logistics for 20 plus years now. Started at the ground level by driving actually in my early 20s and moved up there to a transportation supervisor, which I'm very, very grateful it happened that way because that gives you the full view of how the industry works as far as shipping with a truckload and whatnot does. Then I became a logistics operations individual, and that's the place that, in my opinion, those are the people that really have their finger on the pulse, and they're going to be able to tell you what's actually going on with the carrier, LTL, truckload, whatever the case is. Those are the folks that, not being in operations now, I really try to stay in touch with and listen to what they're seeing and whatnot, because it's just, I mean, priceless information. After that, I was an international mobility consultant for quite a while. We moved different folks and some of the government folks from the U.S. to whatever country they were going to be going to. And then after that, I got on with Sims Global. I'm as happy as a person could be with the company and with the way claims started to grow and how complicated a lot of them can be. Thankfully, our owner asked me if I would be interested in moving to that. And I think it's probably about 5 or 6 years now that I've really been involved with that. And anyone involved with freight claims these days knows with fraud, theft, everything that's going on. I think it's safe to say it's the most interesting and challenging time we've had in the industry.
Wow. So, you've just been in claims for, I guess, 3 years now, you said?
Approaching six,
Okay, approaching.
but the last three, I think anybody that's probably involved in claims would agree to a certain extent that once the things that we're seeing with the bad actors, I think that's the best term to use for them. All the different things that they are doing, from hacking emails to you name it. It's really pretty amazing how uh, involved they must have been with the industry and what their knowledge is, because they really knew where to push and
Wow.
what to do. Very much so. I hate to give anybody like that credit, but
Yeah.
unfortunately, it is true. So I think it's changed almost everything to do with claims of how you need to approach stuff, because you just didn't have to deal with the aspects like this in so many police departments and uh, cargo departments, like the cargo cats in California. They're fantastic, by the way. Um, and then really being knowledgeable, being aware of what's going on right now, because
Yeah.
as everybody's caught up, you notice that the bad actors and whatnot, they're already having more things up their sleeve of what they're going to do. So, and that has happened multiple times. So it's unfortunately not going anywhere anytime soon. I think maybe in the next 3 to 5 years, hopefully we get some help from government folks and FMCSA and the DOT and whatnot. But it's not going to be anything that takes place quickly. So it's up to brokerages and so forth to know what's going on and do
Wow.
your vetting. I don't think anything's more important than vetting these days.
Wow. Well, that's an interesting take that not everyone really realizes. So, has this? My next question was, how has transportation and logistics evolved over time? And you've kind of already gone into that. So, it's
Lucky.
Yeah, it's so and now so security really is now one of the bigger issues.
Correct. I would never want to downplay anything involved with, your customer relations and operations. I mean, operations is extremely important. If you don't have that part done right, you're not going to have happy clients, and they're probably not going to choose to use you again. So you need to definitely be aware of whatever the client, or excuse me, whoever the client is and what they're shipping. Know what the best route of moving forward would be. And then now with the past 4 or 5 years, it's not only understanding what the best way of moving forward is, it would be your vetting process. And you don't just hire any carrier. That those times are long past. So you need to do a pretty good amount of research on the people that are interested in hauling your loads. Checking MCS 150 information that's changed recently, potentially. There's lots of aspects to try to make the best decision and in your gut feel good about the people that you're hiring, because the stolen shipments and those situations can be they can be very challenging. Wrecks are too, don't get me wrong, but um, they're a little bit less challenging than what you'll see with the fraud and theft. So, because I think a lot of people have been caught by those situations over the past couple of years, and thankfully, the industry has a lot of good people as far as claims are concerned. And between conferences, just staying in touch with people that are veterans, which I try to do, and
Yeah.
then just read as much as you can to try to follow along. Where do you think they're going in the future? And if you're not a criminal, that can be a little bit difficult at times, because you can get an idea of what it looks like they're doing, but you don't understand how is that going to be used against customers, brokerages, carriers, and so forth. But they've uh, they've been very clever, the folks that are doing that. So it's a gigantic challenge.
Wow. So over the past 20 years that you've been in, um, was there a turning point? Perhaps maybe a new technology was introduced or something like that that was really a turning point for the industry?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. As far as operations are concerned, I guess I would say anytime the internet showed up, that was a game changer in itself. Not seeing people use paperwork much anymore was something else. But currently, I would say the different platforms that are out there to help you stay safe, like Highway, Genlogs, Carrier Assure, there's quite a few of them. And those have been huge because prior to them being an option, it seemed to depend on what information you had from past experience with carriers, because there's so many. I mean, there's just so many of them out there. And if you're familiar with the FMCSA and whatnot, that's pretty easy for them to create a new one or buy an existing MC number. It's makes it very challenging for everybody trying to stay safe. But those platforms, they're fantastic. They
Yeah.
give you, I would say, 80-90% of the information that was hard to obtain before, and they give you a real fighting chance to stay safe for yourself and customers.
I gotcha. So, what about doing cross-state and international type of work? Have you had to adapt much for regulatory changes or labor environments that may be going on?
Personally, not a lot actually, but it depends on how much you're shipping. What are you shipping? Where is it going to? Because different countries are a little bit different. But like with COGSA, that is dictates everything pertaining to an international like container ship claim, that kind of thing. It's I don't want to say it hasn't changed, because I don't think that would be a good description, but it's going to depend on how much your company that you're currently with ships in that manner to understand what has changed and really been helpful or unfortunately not been helpful. So myself personally, I can't say there was anything that's happened or a technology that's really helped or hurt anything like that.
I gotcha. So, focusing on now the present from your current work, what practices, tools, or strategies in logistics are delivering the best results today?
That's a good question. I would say using any platforms that are available to you. I realize some of them are costly, and depending on your business, how good is it doing and whatnot, can you use those? I would say under like the analytics, anything that's going to help you in that regard. If it's available to you and you can afford it, use it. That stuff's very helpful. But the main thing I would say isn't so much on anything you need to purchase or whatnot. I would say staying on top of your team, the people that are doing, that type of work, making sure that there's good conversation about what's going on in the moment and knowing the different companies, carriers, everybody that's involved with that. I don't want to badmouth anybody. I don't like doing that, but depending on what type of shipping again you're doing, you're going to know the different carriers and people available. Sometimes they're great and sometimes they drop off a little bit. I guess maybe any company can do that, but know who's going to provide your team with the best possible outcome with what you're shipping, where is it going, and who is your client that's involved. I think that's for me, that's key.
Yeah. How do modern supply chains build in resilience and scalability, like especially under external stresses, like for example, regulatory changes or demand spikes? Obviously, the pandemic was a huge external force. How do companies build in resilience, especially learning from the pandemic?
Yeah, very true. That's a very good question. Um, I would say what's going to provide you with the best resiliency would be staying informed in the moment of understanding, like with the pandemic, I think that it's safe to say it was a curveball for everybody. Um, the odd thing is with logistics and shipping, we actually got busier because
Right.
people weren't able to do certain things. So they were doing a lot more shipping. So it really ramped stuff up for us, which is very fortunate, obviously. But it was more of learning on the fly of how are these things happening. Again, speaking with your teams, having good meetings, and then asking everyone what are they seeing, and then how is that going to impact what we want to do moving forward. But I think it's pretty important to have people that can go with the flow and are open to sharing a lot of information. As far as what I do in our company, I'm not 100% for sure what the technology would necessarily be that was helping with that. I'm sure there's something out there, but from our experience, it was definitely good conversation, making sure everybody was aware of what are we seeing, who's good, who's not so good,
Yeah,
and then kind of basing everything off of that
I gotcha.
and having a good platform for whatever you're using for submitting shipments, building your loads, that kind of thing. That is like we use Thai software and they've been fantastic. That is something you're going to use many times in a day. So having one that will accommodate what your needs are for inputting information, submitting shipments to be shipped, claims, whatever it might be. I
Yeah,
would say that's pretty key because your team's going to use it all the time.
right, right. So, from everything that you've seen and knowing that AI is becoming more and more a way of the future, are there any, I don't know, major pain points in the transportation and logistics industry that you feel would be ripe for AI utilization?
That's a very good question. Best way to say that. I think after you get past the normal discussion you hear these days of nobody's going to have a job and these type of topics or that AI 2027 paper and whatnot, there's going to be things like with what we deal with, and I'm involved in, if they have automated vehicles and trucks, that would be a huge part. And I don't want to make it sound like these individuals aren't clever enough to maybe figure out how to work around that, because
Right.
they sure have so far. But that would remove a lot of components that are helping make those things able to happen.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, and then obviously safety, so forth. At least from my understanding of what the aim is, I hope that would be the case. Um, but as far as daily shipping, I'm really on the fence about that one, to be completely honest, because everything's pretty much contemplation right now about how that impact is actually going to be.
Yeah.
Um, I'd like to think between the negative and positive things you hear that it's going to fall somewhere in the middle, like in my opinion, most things do.
Right.
Um, but I'm just not 100% sold that how complicated at times making the decisions are for who do we want to use, the what the shipment, the commodity is, is that size okay? There's going to be things like that that I think AI would be great with, because it's well, I don't want to say simple, but it's easily dictated what the exceptions are, what's going to be okay to do. But the aspects of who to use. Basically, when anything doesn't go well, I would be interested to see how AI is actually going to work out in those aspects. But I'm sure there's going to be plenty of areas where AI can be extremely helpful.
Right.
I guess it's just going to depend on how does it get used.
Yeah. Yeah. I can see that.
Interested to find out though.
Right. Right. Well, it's definitely it enhances, from what I've noticed, it just enhances what work you can do in a day. You know, it it enhances that. It allows you to do a large percentage more.
I
Um,
believe that
yeah,
absolutely.
yeah,
But hopefully, for companies that, with that being the case, you'll have people that can be involved with maybe the more complicated aspects of what's being shipped, and just the knowledge base of the history with the lanes, where that freight is being picked up, shipped to.
hmm,
A lot of that parts that I'm sure they'll come up with some way to insert information, but it's all opinion, to be completely honest. So
yeah,
I would hope people get used in that aspect in a big way, but you're right with the data entry, things of that nature. I don't see why that wouldn't be very helpful and
right,
time. Yeah,
yeah. So, how important is real-time visibility and integrated data across the chain? How important is that?
extremely important.
Yeah,
In all honesty, I'd be interested in hearing someone debate that it's not. I don't know of any situations you deal with as far as logistics are concerned where real-time data isn't precisely what you need or want. I
right.
think that's pretty paramount. Yeah.
Yeah,
Especially on the aspect of claims and whatnot. Now you're able to, if you have a sensor that's inside the trailer of the truck, that's extremely helpful. You can actually see where people are going, because in instances you can spoof the tracking data and whatnot. So it's technology is fantastic, but it appears to always give clever people the ability to misuse that. But
right.
um, us having real time data and information when it comes to those aspects, that's absolutely what we want.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So, from your experience, what do you feel are the biggest obstacles standing in the way of adopting advanced technologies? You think it's culture, cost, infrastructure, trust?
I'm sure, like many things, it's going to be, all of those combined to some extent. But
Yeah,
um, how is it going to legally be dictated to? Is it mandatory? Is it something to where it's always up to companies and industries to use as they see fit and will be helpful? And I'm always a pretty big fan of walking before you run, so not going too quickly. no matter how anybody or companies choose to use it. Um, but that's a great question. I think everybody's pretty uh, anticipating finding out how that's going to be. But culture-wise, I don't see how that's going to be more important than that.
Yeah,
Um, Having people concerned with how does that impact their career, that's that's a big deal.
sure.
But I'd like to think if people are pretty level-headed about how they're going to use it, and like I said, walk before you run, to make sure what you're wanting it to obtain and the goals that those take place, and yeah, go a little slowly, I would say,
Yeah,
especially with all the negative stories you hear and out there. So I'm
right.
always interested to see how that's actually going to play out.
Yeah, absolutely. So as you look out, um, we'll wrap it up with a future question. So as you look out over the next few years, what trends or changes in the supply chain and logistics get you excited, and which ones get you concerned?
Uh, I would say the I don't know if there's anything that's, again, I think that's obviously going to have some positive impacts, which are fantastic. I don't see how that couldn't excite you, to be honest.
Right.
Like what you were saying with the timeliness and being able to use your available time doing, not more important, but other things that were hard in a day's work to be able to get to. And I hate saying it, to be honest, but I think seeing how that's going to impact people and their careers and whatnot, that or I've just listened to too many podcasts, which is definitely possible. But seeing how that's going to impact everyone, very interested in that aspect. But I'm I'm just a believer of it. It's going to have many positives, and then of course we'll have some negatives, and really hope that lands as close to the middle as possible. But I think it's going to be up to people and leaders of companies to try to have a pretty sane approach to how they want to go about that. What aspects are, like we were saying with data entry, that kind of thing, they're going to be extremely good, and that will be faster than unfortunately any human can be. But
Yeah,
how is it going to impact more complicated things within a company?
right,
And then obviously industry, there's going to be some that's just best thing that's ever happened, I'm sure. But
right.
really does, in my opinion, depend on what you're going to be using it for.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, well, good. Well, that wraps up all the questions. And Keith, it's been a great conversation. Your perspective and operational logistics, mobility, and scaling gives us a real sense of both what works now and what may be coming down the pipeline. I think the key takeaway
Thank you. That's
is,
very kind.
yeah, well, I think is the key takeaway for me is as we've heard that the future supply chain isn't just about really faster delivery or low cost. It's about adaptability, intelligence, and perhaps using new technologies to your advantage. But
Correct. I would agree with that. I'm sure there's individuals out there that won't see it that way, but that's definitely my opinion and probably the best way to proceed in that scenario.
yeah, yeah. Well, hopefully, like with your story, you started out in a truck, and
Yeah,
then now you're in an office, making leadership decisions. So hopefully, maybe that can happen for those individuals.
that would be excellent. I think that would probably be the best case scenario. In that regard, I would always advise people to keep learning. I don't think there's any time where continuing your education or whatever industry you're in, what's going on in that moment, just being aware and have your finger on the pulse there. That's the one area that I think helps me quite a bit, is just the interest in wanting to learn as much as you can.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, well, excellent. Well, thank you for being with us today, Keith. And for all the listeners out there and joining us on Impact AI, we thank you. And until next time, stay curious, stay proactive, and keep making an impact.